What if I told you there's a sea so mysterious that ships from 2,500 years ago still sit on its bottom, completely intact, with their ropes still tied to the masts, their cargo holds filled with ancient treasures, and their wooden hulls preserved as if they sank yesterday? Welcome back to Underwater Mysteries. I'm about to take you on a journey into the Black Sea's hidden depths, where one man's obsession with the ocean led to discoveries that rewrote maritime history. Picture this. You're standing on the deck of a massive survey vessel, staring into waters that have kept their secrets for millennia. The sea stretches endlessly before you, but somewhere beneath those dark waves lie the remnants of empires that once ruled the ancient world. The sea for me has a fascination, says John Adams, the maritime archaeologist who raised King Henry VIII's flagship, the Mary Rose. I like being on the sea. I sleep better on a boat. I like the smell of it, the taste of it. It's somewhere where I'm happy. But Adams isn't here for leisure. He's leading one of the most ambitious underwater expeditions ever attempted, a 3-year, multi-million-dollar quest to unlock the Black Sea's deepest mysteries. Now, here's what makes this story absolutely incredible. The Black Sea isn't like any other body of water on Earth. Are you ready for this? Below 150 meters, that's about 500 feet. There's literally no oxygen in the water. None. It becomes what scientists call a dead zone. But here's the twist that changes everything. When there's no oxygen, there's no marine life to eat away at wooden shipwrecks. No shipworms, no bacteria, nothing. Which means ships that sank here thousands of years ago should theoretically still be sitting on the bottom, perfectly preserved. Think about that for a moment. We're talking about vessels that sailed when ancient Greece was at its peak, when Rome was building its empire, when civilizations we only read about in history books were thriving. And they might all be down there, waiting. The 3,000-ton survey vessel Strill Explorer cuts through the mysterious waters off the Bulgarian coast at 6 knots. On board, an international team of scientists led by Adams is about to make history. But they don't know it yet. We have some promising target areas that we'd like to investigate further, Adams explains to his team. These are our selected locations, and we've given the coordinates to the bridge. We're heading to the first one now. This isn't some amateur treasure hunt. The Strill Explorer is loaded with the most advanced deep-sea technology money can buy. Remotely operated vehicles that can dive nearly 2,000 meters deep. Sonar systems that can map the ocean floor with incredible precision. High-definition cameras that can capture every detail of what lies beneath. But here's what's really fascinating, and this is something most people don't realize about the Black Sea. This vast body of water was once completely cut off from the world's oceans. Picture a massive freshwater lake, unconnected to the Mediterranean or any sea. Early humans lived and hunted along its shores thousands of years ago. So how did it become the Black Sea we know today? That's one of the biggest mysteries Adams and his team are trying to solve. And the answer might change everything we think we know about ancient civilizations. The depth here is 261 meters, comes the voice from the control room. As the ROV, that's the remotely operated vehicle, descends into the abyss, there's always this moment of anticipation. You're staring at screens showing nothing but green water, wondering what secrets lie in the darkness below. As the ROV moves in, there's always this moment, Adams recalls. The green haze of water gradually resolves into this shape, and you start seeing timbers. And then it happens. The moment that makes your heart race. I feel this uncontrollable surge of excitement. Finding shipwrecks like that is breathtaking. You're thinking, I wonder what this is going to be. Can you imagine that feeling? You're the first person to lay eyes on something that's been hidden for centuries. Maybe even millennia. What stories could it tell? What secrets does it hold? The cameras reveal wooden balustrades around what appears to be a quarterdeck, ropes that once worked the sails. In any other ocean, most of this wreck would have rotted away long ago. But not here. Not in the Black Sea's unique environment. "That's quite a lot of rope," someone whispers in amazement. "Oh yes, that's brilliant. Look at that rope leaning against the beam." But it's what they see next that stops everyone cold. Have you seen the carving? Oh, the carving. It's all over the place. Intricate carved patterns of flowers and vines emerge from the darkness. The style is unmistakably Islamic. This ship sailed during the height of the Ottoman Empire, probably around 300 years ago. It's just unbelievable. You run out of words. We are discovering it. We are looking at it now for the first time. Now, let me paint you a picture of what the Black Sea meant to the Ottoman Empire. 3 centuries ago, this wasn't just another body of water. It was a prized possession, a lifeline for one of history's greatest empires. Constantinople, what we now call Istanbul, was the beating heart of the Ottoman world. By the time the Ottomans had fully conquered the region, close to 700,000 people called this massive city home. Can you imagine trying to feed that many people in the 1600s? That's where the Black Sea came in. It was like a massive highway for merchant ships carrying vital supplies. Grain from the Balkans, precious metals from the Caucasus. Everything the empire needed flowed through these waters. But the sea was treacherous. Storms could appear out of nowhere. Ships carrying precious cargo and precious lives sometimes never made it home. Here's where the science gets really interesting. In theory, shipwrecks in 300 meters of water should be well preserved because of that oxygen-free environment I mentioned earlier. But until this expedition, nobody really knew for sure. So the first time we started to see that Ottoman wreck, that was a moment. It really showed us that we can see wonderful things all over the bottom of this sea. But Adams and his team aren't just here for Ottoman-era ships. They're hunting for something much, much older. Ships from the ancient Greeks who first explored these waters. Roman vessels that carried the wealth of an empire. Byzantine merchants who sailed these routes when Europe was emerging from the Dark Ages. The question is, are they still down there? Have they survived the centuries in the Black Sea's unique environment? Or have they been lost to time forever? What Adams discovers next will shock the archaeological world and change everything we think we know about ancient seafaring. But first, let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to be the first person to see a piece of history that's been hidden for thousands of years? To know that you're looking at something that connects you directly to people who lived and died millennia ago? That's exactly what happened next. And trust me, you're not going to believe what they found. The Black Sea expedition actually began 12 months earlier on a Greek survey ship. Adams had a theory to test, one that had divided archaeologists for decades. How did the Black Sea actually form? Picture this. 20,000 years ago, during the last ice age, global sea levels were much lower. The Black Sea, as we know, it didn't exist. Instead, there was a smaller freshwater lake surrounded by dry land where early humans probably lived and hunted. For decades, most scientists agreed on what happened next. As the ice age ended, freshwater from surrounding rivers slowly filled the lake over thousands of years. Eventually, it reached the Bosphorus Strait and began mixing with seawater from the Mediterranean. But in 1997, 2 American scientists threw a wrench into this theory. Walter Pittman and William Ryan argued something much more dramatic had happened. They proposed that the Mediterranean Sea had burst through the Bosphorus in a catastrophic flood that inspired the biblical story of Noah's Ark. Can you imagine? A flood so massive, so devastating, that it became legend? Using sophisticated sonar equipment, Adam's team begins mapping the ancient buried landscape. They're looking for evidence of that prehistoric shoreline, proof of how this transformation actually happened. At the moment, we're essentially sailing over the ancient shoreline. From here toward the land of Bulgaria, which we can see on the horizon, everything was dry land once upon a time. Think about that. You're sailing over what used to be someone's home. Maybe their hunting grounds. Their entire world, now buried under hundreds of feet of water. But while they're solving one mystery, Adams is obsessed with another. If the Black Sea's unique chemistry preserves organic material so well, then ships from those ancient empires should still be down there. Greek vessels from when Plato was alive. Roman cargo ships that fed an empire. Byzantine merchants from the medieval period. Using a device called a towfish, which sends powerful sound pulses through the water, the team begins scanning the seafloor. When those sound waves hit something solid, they bounce back, creating a detailed picture of what's hidden below. This is the first one that really jumped off the screen as a definite shipwreck. Even if it's recent, this could be a really interesting find. The deepest target is almost 300 meters down, nearly 1,000 feet below the surface. At that depth, the preservation should be incredible. But getting down there to see what's waiting is another challenge entirely. Enter the supporter ROV, a technological marvel that can reach depths of nearly 2,000 meters. Connected to the ship by a fiber optic cable, it glides through the water with just the touch of a joystick. Its 8 cameras will open a window to an undiscovered world. Ready? Yes, ready. Take it away, guys. As the ROV descends, you can feel the tension in the control room. Everyone knows they're about to see something that's been hidden for centuries. The cameras show nothing but dark water, getting darker as they go deeper. At 150 meters, they hit that critical depth. The oxygen disappears. They're now in the Black Sea's famous dead zone, that unique environment that might have preserved ancient ships better than anywhere else on Earth. And then, through the green murk, shapes begin to emerge. What they're about to discover will not only rewrite the history books, but prove that the Black Sea is indeed one of the world's greatest underwater museums. Ships from empires that ruled the ancient world, preserved in ways that shouldn't be possible, are waiting in the darkness. But I'm getting ahead of myself. What happens next is so incredible, so mind-blowing, that even these experienced archaeologists are left speechless. Are you ready to see what 2,500 years of history looks like when it's perfectly preserved on the ocean floor? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because what we discover next will change everything you think you know about ancient civilizations. In part 2, we're going deeper than any archaeological expedition has gone before, and what we find down there will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about the ancient world. Welcome back to Ancient Underwater Mysteries. In part 1, we dove into the Black Sea with maritime archaeologist John Adams and discovered Ottoman-era shipwrecks preserved in ways that shouldn't be possible. But that was just the beginning. What I'm about to show you next will make those 300-year-old ships look modern. We're going deeper, much deeper, into waters where time itself seems to have stopped. And what's waiting down there has been hidden for over 1,000 years. The Strill Explorer is now heading further out to sea, into deeper waters where Adams believes the really ancient ships might be hiding. Think about it logically. The older the ship, the longer it's had to sink into the deepest parts of the sea. You can never tell where the ancient shipwrecks will be, but you go down below 150 meters, the preservation becomes dramatically better. And so if you're looking for ancient shipwrecks, look in the deeper water. You might get lucky and find some really early stuff. The next target takes the ROV deeper than it's ever gone before, 1,800 meters down. That's over a mile beneath the surface. The journey alone takes 40 minutes, descending through increasingly dark water until they reach a world where sunlight has never penetrated. My personal favorite on the wish list is a medieval Byzantine shipwreck. If we find one of those ships, I'll be very happy. Now, let me tell you why finding a Byzantine ship would be such a big deal. The Byzantine Empire was the eastern continuation of the Roman Empire, lasting over 1,000 years until Constantinople fell in 1453. These were the people who kept the flame of classical civilization burning while much of Europe was struggling through the Dark Ages. But here's the thing. We know almost nothing about Byzantine ships. Sure, we have some artwork and some written descriptions, but we've never actually seen one. It would be like finding a missing link in maritime history. There it is. Yeah, this definitely looks like a 17th century Eastern Mediterranean cargo vessel. The ROV's lights illuminate another Ottoman-era ship, similar to what they've already found. But Adams isn't discouraged. He knows that with every dive, they're getting closer to something truly ancient. And that's when they deploy one of their most revolutionary tools, photogrammetry. Here's how it works. The ROV captures hundreds of high-resolution photographs of the wreck from every possible angle. Then sophisticated software stitches these images together to create a precise three-dimensional model. We capture a series of stills at a frame rate of 3 every second. From this wreck, we managed to get 700 photos. The software stitches them together, and you start getting a much better idea of the ship's details. Think about what this means. Without ever bringing anything to the surface, they can measure every timber, record every artifact, and create a perfect digital replica of a ship that's been underwater for centuries. It's like having X-ray vision for archaeology. The levels of technology have become so advanced. The things we used to dream of as methods of three-dimensional recording underwater with speed and accuracy, now they're here. To a certain extent, you can do an awful lot sitting in a control room with a cup of coffee in one hand and a joystick in the other. But technology is just a tool. What really drives these archaeologists is the human connection, the link to people who lived and died centuries ago. From their photogrammetry model, they spot something wedged under a timber near the stern of the wreck. Using the ROV's manipulator arm, essentially a robotic hand controlled from the surface, they carefully extract the object. There's an old expression that archaeologists don't dig up things, but people. It's the things that allow us to get to the people. What they bring up stops everyone cold. It's a clay brazier, essentially an ancient portable fireplace. And here's the incredible part. It's still full of ashes and charcoal from the last meal cooked on board that ship. This brazier probably contained the remains of the last meal that was eaten on board the boat. Can you imagine? You're holding something that connects you directly to the final moments of people who lived centuries ago. Their last meal. Their last hope before disaster struck. You're talking to these people. They suddenly become real. They are right next to you. For maritime archaeologist Basharov, ships are the closest possible connection to lost civilizations. He spent years studying the Vasa, a 17th century Swedish warship that sank in Stockholm harbor and was later raised from the seabed. If you study the timbers properly, you're going to see the marks from the tools. You will learn to recognize their signature by the way they use their tools. Basharov has been painstakingly examining each timber of the ship's frame, reconstructing how ancient shipwrights worked. What he's discovered challenges everything we thought we knew about medieval craftsmanship. There are not two timbers that are exactly the same aboard the ship, or that are even universally squared. The capability of dealing with complicated engineering problems. This is telling us something about the mental state of these people. Think about that. These weren't primitive builders following simple patterns. They were solving complex engineering problems, creating vessels that could safely carry cargo and crews across dangerous seas. Each ship was a masterpiece of problem-solving. How much they understood the forces that were acting upon their ships. How did they solve the problem of creating a regularly operational vessel that was safe, that made sure it would bring its cargo, and preferably also its crew back home at the end of the voyage? But back on the Strill Explorer, time is running out and pressure is building. This is a $20 million expedition with high expectations of making ancient discoveries. Every day at sea costs thousands of dollars. Every dive that doesn't produce results adds to the tension. In this case, there's so much money involved. There are so many people involved as well. There's a lot of stress, a lot of tension. There's only one chance. It's uneconomic to get it wrong. At this scale, there's a lot of pressure to get it right. For over 2 weeks, they've been finding the same type of Ottoman wrecks. Ship after ship from roughly the same era. The team is getting frustrated. Not another one. Oh yeah, same old, same old. It's yet another one to add to our fleet. It's disappointing. Adams is particularly feeling the weight of expectations. He's led expeditions before, but never one this ambitious, never one with this much riding on it. You hear the official designation of this type of ship, the IKEA wreck, because they're all the same, like they come virtually flat-packed. Each inspection takes up to 6 hours. It's eating into their schedule, but they can't take shortcuts. Every wreck could be the ancient ship they're looking for. Archaeology is like that. You just have to work with what you have, but it would be nice to have something else. While the hunt for ancient ships continues, Adams also has to solve that other mystery. Exactly how and when the Black Sea flooded. This requires a completely different approach. Using the detailed maps they created the previous year, the team selects 73 specific sites on the seabed to core. Think of it like taking a biopsy of the ocean floor. They lower 6-meter-long hollow tubes onto the seabed, then push them into the soft mud. When extracted, these cores contain layers of sediment that could date back tens of thousands of years. It's like reading the pages of Earth's history book. This is fantastic. A full 6 meters of consolidated sediment. What you're looking at here contains all the evidence for how the environment was at the time and how it changed over time. In one core, they find something particularly interesting. Thick mud sits at the top, evidence of the current marine environment. But further back in time, toward the bottom, mixed in with the sediment are pieces of shell. We see that and we go, that looks familiar. That looks like a beach. Why is that underwater? That's an ancient beach from before it got submerged. Think about what this means. They're holding evidence of an ancient shoreline that's now buried under hundreds of feet of water. Land where early humans once walked, hunted, maybe even built settlements. So if I can understand where that coastline was, then we can start looking at that coastline, thinking about it. What was the geography in the past of the Black Sea? With 73 cores to extract and time running short, the search for shipwrecks has to continue through the night. In the early hours of the morning, after 3 weeks at sea, Adams gets a phone call that changes everything. I'd given up and gone to bed because I'd been up for about 24 hours. And lo and behold, the phone rings. They said, John, do you want to see something different?" Racing to the control room, Adams stares at the monitors as the ROV approaches something unlike anything they found before. The eeriness of the mast just sticking out of the darkness. Incredible. This isn't another Ottoman wreck. The design is different. Older. Much older. Do I see tool marks on that mast? Can we take a closer look at the mast as we come around? What they're looking at is a merchant ship, most likely built in Italy, dating from somewhere between 1200 to 1400 AD. It's 500 years older than anything they've found so far. We find pictures of them, or reliefs carved in churches and things, but this is the first time anybody's seen anything like this for real, almost intact. It's amazing. It's the sort of ship that Marco Polo might have sailed on. Think about that for a moment. When the great medieval explorer Marco Polo returned to Venice in 1295 after 24 years in the East, his final journey was across the Black Sea on a ship much like this one. Then you start thinking, well, the last time that ship was seen was probably the last time those people saw anything. What would that have been like for them? Must have been terrifying. Suddenly, it becomes about a group of people's very real demise. This is what makes underwater archaeology so powerful. It's not just about finding old things. It's about connecting with real people who faced real dangers. These weren't just ships. They were floating communities. Each wreck represents lives cut short, dreams that never reached their destination. And then we were finished, and the ROV just drew back. Suddenly I thought, there but for the grace of God go I. Here's what's truly revolutionary about this discovery. In the past, lifting a wreck of this age to the surface would cost tens of millions of dollars and might destroy it in the process. But with 3D photogrammetry, they don't have to. They can create a perfect digital replica that archaeologists can study for years to come. Every timber measured, every detail recorded, every artifact catalogued without ever disturbing the wreck itself. That little Mediterranean ship, probably built in Venice or somewhere like that, gives us a way into history that we can't get by any other means. Adams knows this intimately because of his work on the Mary Rose, King Henry VIII flagship. When he began work on raising that ship in the late 1970s, it became the biggest maritime archaeological project ever undertaken. I can picture myself as though it was yesterday, being inside this amazing structure. All the guns were still in place, and there were shot and ropes and longbows and all sorts of other stuff lying around. The Mary Rose revealed life in medieval England in incredible detail. But that ship represented the after, the end result of centuries of maritime technological development. This Black Sea discovery shows the before, how ships were built in the medieval period before the great technological leaps of the Renaissance. So the Mediterranean ship that we found is the before, and the Mary Rose is the after. But just when everything seems to be going perfectly, disaster strikes. During a dive to 500 meters, something goes wrong with the ROV. Now this is a critical situation. We lost our hydro-acoustic position. It's there, but it's not coming up. The ROV's positioning beacon has broken. Somewhere in the depths, several $1 million worth of submersible is drifting in the current, and nobody knows exactly where it is. We have a loop of 760 meters of cable now, and we are only 470 meters under the boat. So the current is pulling on the loop. The current has dragged the ROV nearly half a kilometer out to sea. If they lose it, the expedition is over. All that investment, all those discoveries, all for nothing. Flying blind, all we can do is slowly reel the ROV back on board without crashing it into the ship's hull. Can you imagine the tension in that control room? Everyone knows that one wrong move could destroy their only window into the ancient world below. I was so relieved. I had this horror of going along with millions and millions of pounds worth of equipment. Crisis averted. But it's a stark reminder of just how dangerous and expensive deep-sea archaeology really is. While the hunt for ancient ships continues, the scientific analysis of those 73 sediment cores is revealing the truth about how the Black Sea formed. At the UK's National Oceanography Centre, scientists have found the smoking gun. Core 59 contains almost 4 meters of pure shell, evidence of the prehistoric lake that existed before the Black Sea flooded. If we take a sample from here, we have a real mixture. You can see some slightly more intact shells, some that are slightly broken, and then we have this completely ground down shell within it. This isn't just any shell deposit. The way these shells are broken and ground down tells a story. Wave energy and a dynamic environment has basically churned this around, breaking them down into what looks like sand. That's really good evidence that we're on the edge of the Black Sea Lake as it was then. Taken 60 kilometers off the present-day coast, this core gives them a precise location of the prehistoric lake's shore. Tens of thousands of square kilometers of dry land that is now submerged once supported early human populations. That's a large amount of continental shelf here that would have been possibly inhabited, crossed by people who were looking for the resources they needed to live. Helen Farr, the expedition's prehistory specialist, paints a picture of what this ancient world might have looked like. The Black Sea was a great environment. You've got rich areas which would have had game and things to hunt. You've got fish resources. You've got stone. So you've got all the things that you really need to be successful. But how did this prehistoric paradise become the Black Sea we know today? Slowly, over thousands of years, or in a catastrophic flood that might have inspired the biblical story of Noah? The answer lies in the sediment cores, and what they reveal will finally settle a debate that has divided scientists for decades. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. Because what happens next in the depths of the Black Sea will make everything we've discovered so far seem like practice runs. They're about to find something that's been hidden for over 1,000 years. A ship from one of history's most mysterious empires. And then, in the final days of the expedition, they'll make a discovery so incredible, so perfectly preserved, that it will redefine what we thought was possible in underwater archaeology. Are you ready to go even deeper? To see what happens when you find a ship that's not just old, but ancient beyond imagination. The deepest secrets of the Black Sea are still waiting to be revealed. In Part 3, we're going to witness discoveries that will make your jaw drop, including a ship that might be 2,500 years old and a Roman vessel so perfectly preserved it looks like it sank yesterday. Hit that subscribe button because you won't want to miss what comes next. Welcome back to Ancient Underwater Mysteries. We followed John Adams and his team as they've discovered Ottoman merchant ships and medieval vessels perfectly preserved in the Black Sea's unique environment. But now we're about to witness something that will change maritime archaeology forever. What I'm about to show you has been hidden for over 1,000 years. We're talking about ships from empires that ruled when Vikings were raiding Europe, when the Byzantine Empire stretched from Italy to the Middle East, and when ancient Greece was still a memory passed down through generations. Are you ready to see history come alive? The expedition has moved to new waters, following a tip from Bulgarian fishermen who've been working these seas for generations. Think about it. Fishermen have been casting their nets in these waters for thousands of years, following the same migration patterns of bonito, scad, and anchovy that have sustained Black Sea communities since ancient times. At least twice, fishermen have caught artifacts with their nets. Amphorae were used by the Romans and ancient Greeks to transport olive oil, wine, and fish paste throughout the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. Bulgarian archaeologist Kalin Dimitrov has been listening to these fishermen's stories. Local knowledge passed down through generations often leads to the greatest discoveries. We're sure that these artifacts come from shipwrecks that are exposed on the bottom. We have the approximate location of the area, so we'll try to find the shipwreck. Scanning the shallow coastal waters where the fishermen worked their nets, the team picks up a new signature. And incredibly, the Bulgarian fishermen were absolutely right. Brilliant. There's little of the wreck left, but it's evidence that older finds are out there. A single amphora lies on the seabed, proof that ancient ships really did sink in these waters. But this is just the beginning. The team continues along the coast, staying in shallower waters where ancient merchants would have sailed to avoid the dangers of the open sea. I'm not sure yet, but can you make a note for me, please? There was an anomaly on the port side. We have something out there. And then it happens. The discovery that makes all those weeks at sea worthwhile. Watch this. Ah yes, here we go. That's what it is. Yes, it is. Amphorae. Not just one amphora. Dozens of them. From a Roman cargo ship, still sitting exactly where they were loaded over 2,000 years ago. What we have is a complete cargo of amphorae sitting down there, still on the decks of the ship that carried it. Not bad, eh? Can you imagine what it's like to be the first person to see this? A Roman merchant's entire cargo, perfectly arranged just as it was when the ship went down. Each clay vessel is a time capsule, potentially containing clues about the ancient world. Let me paint you a picture of what this discovery really means. At its height, the Roman Empire controlled over half of the Black Sea. This wasn't just conquered territory, it was the empire's lifeline. Roman ships would journey from the Mediterranean through the Bosphorus to the Black Sea's northern shores. They'd trade wine and olive oil for timber and grain, the raw materials that fed and built the greatest empire the world had ever seen. Each of these clay vessels is a time capsule waiting to be recovered, containing clues about the world from which they and the ship came. These amphorae weren't just containers. They were branded with the marks of their makers, stamps that told you exactly where they came from and what they contained. They're like ancient shipping labels that can tell us incredible details about Roman trade networks. If we recovered an amphora, we could have a very quick general idea about the location of the production center, and probably even their contents and the origin of the ship's journey. At 95 meters deep, it's possible to dive and retrieve an amphora directly. But getting divers back into the water takes days of preparation, and time is running out on this expensive expedition. The alternative? Use the ROV's manipulator arm. But here's the problem. You're trying to pick up a 2,000-year-old clay artifact with a robotic arm controlled from nearly 100 meters above. One wrong move and you've destroyed something that survived 2 millennia. The team has an ace up their sleeve. Using the Surveyor Interceptor's laser scanner, they can record a perfect blueprint of the wreck and get the exact dimensions of the amphora they want to recover. The amphora is 80 centimeters tall and 50 centimeters wide. Big enough to carry 20 liters of olive oil or wine. Small enough for a grown man to heave onto a Roman cargo ship. Now comes the ingenious part. The ROV pilots devise a brilliantly simple solution. They modify a toilet plunger to create a suction device that can gently lift the amphora without damaging it. The plan that's been hatched to retrieve the amphora is Scandinavian in its simplicity. If we could modify one of these suction cups for toilets, get it attached, and lift it. Sometimes the best solutions are the simplest ones. After hours of careful maneuvering, fighting ocean currents, and limited visibility, they succeed. Lost for nearly 2,000 years, the amphora is back on the surface. Every single person on this ship now can relate to every single artifact that we're retrieving because it is a piece of our common global heritage and the lifetime of our forefathers. Every artifact you discover brings you one step closer to the humans who actually built it and used it and carried it. This is what makes underwater archaeology so powerful. You're not just finding old things. You're connecting with real people who lived real lives. Someone made this amphora. Someone filled it with wine or oil. Someone loaded it onto a ship, probably saying a prayer that they'd reach their destination safely. They didn't, but their story survives. With less than a week left at sea, the team changes course dramatically. They're now heading into much deeper water, following what Adams believes were ancient shipping routes that early navigators used to avoid the treacherous coastlines. I think we see evidence for deep water sailing surprisingly early. Early evidence suggests they didn't just hug the shore and go coast hopping. In most areas of the world, they sailed in blue water. This is a critical insight. We often imagine ancient sailors as timid coast huggers, afraid to venture into the open ocean. but the evidence suggests they were far braver and more skilled than we've given them credit for. Within hours of reaching deeper water, they pick up a new wreck signature. This one is lying more than 2 kilometers below the surface, one of the deepest ancient wrecks ever found. The depth here is 2,167 meters. That was probably, historically and archaeologically, our most important moment. The wreck is on its side, half buried in the seabed. But as the ROV's cameras focus on the details, Adams realizes he's looking at something extraordinary. That was a case of seeing things on the wreck that rang bells. You couldn't instantly identify it, but you think, I've seen this before somewhere. What catches his attention is the rudder, still attached with its tiller, perfectly preserved after more than 2 millennia. The quarter rudder with a tiller still attached was actually sloping into the seabed, and it looked really well preserved. So we decided to expose the whole rudder blade to get its shape, because quite often they're diagnostic. The design of the rudder could tell them exactly when this ship sailed. According to ancient iconography, a straight rudder would suggest Roman construction. But what they're about to uncover will prove this ship is much, much older. For 2 hours, the ROV pilots use a powerful vacuum pump to carefully suck away thick layers of sediment that have built up around the rudder over thousands of years. It's painstaking work. One wrong move could damage irreplaceable history. 6 feet of sediment has been sucked away to reveal a curved-shaped rudder. It's not Roman. It's much older. From ancient Greece. Think about what this means. This ship sailed the Black Sea 2,500 years ago, when ancient Greece was at its peak, when Plato was teaching in Athens, when the Parthenon was being built, when democracy was being invented. There's a ship design on a pot which is called the Siren Vase. It's currently in the British Museum. It has rudders that are identical in shape to the one that we exposed that day on the seabed. This isn't just archaeology. It's like finding a missing link in human history. For the first time, they can compare an actual ancient Greek ship with the artistic representations that have survived. Even the position of the mast in the fourth quarter of the ship is very similar. There's very strong evidence to suggest this dates probably somewhere in the 5th century BC, somewhere in the classical Greek age. To understand what this discovery means, you have to picture the ancient Greek world. These weren't people content to stay in their homeland. They were explorers, traders, and colonizers who spread across the Mediterranean and into the Black Sea. In the historic Bulgarian port of Sozopol, land-based archaeological digs have uncovered evidence of these ancient Greek colonies. Walking through the excavation sites with maritime archaeologists Drago Gav and Helen Farr, you can see exactly how these ancient traders lived. The ancient Greeks arrived here in the 7th century BC. So they're coming across through the Bosphorus into the Black Sea, settling here and then instantly trading. The artifacts they've uncovered tell an incredible story. Exotic foods, luxury goods, perfume bottles that still carry the scent of their ancient contents after 2,700 years. These vessels contain such strong essences that at the moment of discovery, they usually still bear the aroma of what was inside them. Can you imagine smelling a perfume that was made when ancient Greece was in its golden age? It just really appeals to me that you could smell something from that long ago. But it's not just the luxury goods that tell the story. They found fish grills, cooking implements, children's toys, evidence that these weren't just trading posts, but real communities where families lived and died. Most of them have been discovered on top of graves. So once a burial would occur, the relatives or friends of the deceased would come back regularly to perform rituals and feasts. That really brings into the picture the fact that these people were living here. Not just traders coming across from Greece, but families, the old, the young, babies and children. The expedition has been at sea for 24 days, and it's taking its toll. mile upon mile surveyed, day and night, in the hunt for ancient wrecks. We've been doing a really good project, but it has been taking its toll, especially on the ROV crew. 1,400 kilometers of seafloor mapped, and they're exhausted now, really. But Adams won't give up. He knows the Black Sea holds more secrets, and every dive could be the one that changes everything. I was tired at the end, but I wasn't weary in the sense of we've done enough. I want to go home. If we'd had another 10 days at sea to do more of the same, I would have grabbed it. There are only 2 days left, but Adams pushes on. The Black Sea has already proven to be a vast repository of historically important wrecks, but he knows they've only scratched the surface. We've now looked at probably about 60 wrecks in the last 3 years, and we've only scratched the surface. And then, with time running out on this multi-million-dollar expedition, they make a discovery that will redefine underwater archaeology forever. We've got a wreck coming through on the starboard side at 42 degrees, 04 minutes, and 53 seconds north. As the ROV approaches this final target, nobody is prepared for what they're about to see. As we came towards it, it was one of those images resolving out of the murk, and then you're looking at an intact hull. Your immediate reaction is, oh well, it's intact, it must be modern. And then as we came towards the stern of the wreck, we recognized a quarter rudder. But this isn't just any rudder. The style of the planking, the position of the mast, the whole shape of the hull, everything about this ship screams antiquity. And then it started to dawn on us. I'm looking at a ship that's 2,000 years old, and it's still complete, and it's got ropes still tied to its mast and hanging off the side. You run out of words. What they're looking at shouldn't exist. It's a Roman ship from the 1st century AD, and it's not just preserved, it's complete. Still intact. Still recognizable as the vessel that once carried cargo across the Roman Empire. No one has ever seen an ancient shipwreck like this. Still so intact and so well preserved. That's astonishing. Absolutely astonishing. The feeling of looking at something like that, just standing there in front of you, that moment of revelation, that's that moment of discovery. That's a feeling you can't really describe. The ship is massive, far larger than anyone expected ancient vessels to be. We're 21 meters and still going. When you see the size of this shipwreck, all of a sudden your mind just goes, I had no idea it was that big. This was not just a fisherman going up and down the coast. This was serious business. Think about what this means. 2,000 years ago, Roman merchants were operating ships of this size, carrying massive cargoes across dangerous seas. These weren't primitive boats. They were sophisticated commercial vessels that could compete with anything built until the modern era. And this is the kind of thing that we're interested in archaeology, giving that richness, that texture to human lives, human past lives. We have a complete ship sitting down there. It's a spectacular find, and when we date it properly, it's probably one of the most important shipwreck finds ever. This isn't hyperbole. What they've discovered is unprecedented in maritime archaeology. A complete ancient ship, perfectly preserved, offering a window into the Roman world that we've never had before. For decades, archaeologists have had to piece together ancient ships from fragments, from artistic representations, and from written descriptions. But here's an actual Roman vessel, intact and waiting to be studied. While the team celebrates their incredible shipwreck discoveries, the scientific analysis of the Black Sea's formation is reaching its conclusion. The 73 sediment cores have finally revealed the truth about how this unique sea was created. The evidence is clear. There was no catastrophic biblical flood. Instead, the transformation happened gradually over thousands of years. It wasn't weeks or months. It was a gradual process over a period of a few thousand years. And what that process led to was the Black Sea's eventual connection with the Mediterranean and ancient empires that surrounded it. This gradual flooding opened up new trade routes for ancient seafarers to explore, connecting the Mediterranean world with the riches of the Black Sea region. It created the maritime highways that allowed Greek colonists, Roman merchants, and Byzantine traders to build their empires. Layer by layer, over 3 years, the expedition has unearthed the ancient past of the Black Sea. They've revealed histories of people who faced a changing climate and sailed the high seas in search of empire and fortune. More than 60 wrecks discovered. A medieval ship that Marco Polo might have sailed on. A huge Roman cargo vessel that was trading 2,000 years ago. An ancient Greek ship that plied these waters when Plato was alive. Have you seen something like that before? Never. I'm not sure anybody has. But perhaps most importantly, they've proven that the sea itself is as important as any land-based archaeological site. Years ago, archaeologists, even if they were working on a coastal site, wouldn't look out to sea. They turned resolutely inland looking for answers from the material they could get at there. We now know that the sea is so important that you really need to turn around and look out to sea. The answers, in many cases, are out there. The depths of this unparalleled sea have revealed touchstones of our ancient past, reminding us of who we are and how we once lived thousands of years ago. These discoveries have rewritten the textbooks. They've shown us that ancient civilizations were far more sophisticated, far more daring, and far more connected than we ever imagined. Ships from the height of ancient Greece, perfectly preserved. Roman vessels that could compete with modern cargo ships. Medieval merchants following trade routes that connected Europe with Asia. All of them lying in the unique environment of the Black Sea, where the absence of oxygen has created the world's greatest underwater museum. But beyond the technology, beyond the scientific breakthroughs, beyond even the incredible preservation, what this expedition really reveals is the human story. The story of people who faced the same challenges we face today. The need to trade, to explore, to connect with distant shores. These weren't primitive peoples making timid coastal journeys. They were sophisticated mariners who understood wind and weather, who built incredible ships, who risked everything to pursue trade and fortune across dangerous seas. When you look at that perfectly preserved Roman ship, you're not just seeing ancient technology. You're seeing the dreams and ambitions of people who lived 2,000 years ago, but shared the same fundamental human desires that drive us today. And here's the incredible thing. This is just the beginning. The Black Sea is vast, and Adam's team has only explored a tiny fraction of it. Somewhere in those depths are ships from every era of human history. Roman galleys, Byzantine merchants, Genoese traders, and Ottoman cargo vessels. Each one a time capsule. Each one a direct connection to the people who built our modern world. The Black Sea has revealed its secrets slowly, reluctantly. But for those brave enough to venture into its depths, patient enough to search its vast expanse, it offers rewards beyond imagination. The ancient world isn't lost. It's not just words in history books or artifacts in museums. It's down there, waiting in the darkness, perfectly preserved and ready to tell its story to anyone willing to listen. And that, my friends, is the real treasure of the Black Sea. What do you think? Does this change how you see ancient civilizations? When you realize that 2,500 years ago, people were building ships and sailing across dangerous seas with the same courage and skill that we admire today. The Black Sea has kept its secrets for millennia, but now they're finally coming to light. And who knows what other mysteries are still waiting down there in the depths. If you enjoyed this incredible journey into the ancient underwater world, make sure to subscribe to Ancient Underwater Mysteries. We're just getting started exploring the hidden wonders that lie beneath our oceans. What ancient mystery would you like us to investigate next? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, keep wondering about the incredible secrets that surround us, just waiting to be discovered. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through the Black Sea's ancient mysteries. The story of human civilization is written not just on land, but in the depths of our oceans. And we're just beginning to read those pages.